I saw the Avicii documentary. Have I talked about that on here yet?
No.
Avicii is definitely alive. That is a fake death if I've ever seen one in my entire life. Now, granted, if he passed away, very sad. Hate it. But they filmed everything. They knew he was going to be a monster, and they filmed everything. From him creating the first couple sounds of songs, all the way through the production, all the way through his tours, 500 and some shows in the first fucking 2 years, all the way through the whole thing. They filmed everything, it felt like. And the way for that thing, he talked open about it being the death of him in the documentary, which is why I think that he was talking like that for the documentary. In a setup at the end, the way to get out of that and disappear and not have to deal with any bullshit again is the same way Tupac did, which is the old fake your death thing. If he did pass away, very sad. The world lost an incredible person. But the end of that Avicii one makes me think he did not die.
I love that.
And
I
in
that so much.
The Malibu part where he goes to Malibu and he just turns his phone off for 8 months. Like he was basically off the grid for 8 months during his like peak of his fame before his Stories album, I think they said.
Right when he canceled the tour, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, that Malibu setup with his studio.
That's the goal I was going to say to you.
Goal.
That is the goal. That exact house.
Yeah, there's an island I found for $4.75 million. It's an island in the Bahamas because I looked up after.
Does it have infrastructure?
Well, yeah, it does.
Good.
There's a couple down there that don't. They're like $15 million. But I looked up Norman K because of the fire thing.
Right.
And I was like, they said they bought an island. So that's possible. So I Googled how much is a Bahamas island. I found one, $4.75 million. That is goal. And also the house in Malibu that fucking Avicii rented to do his album. They set up a studio in, who's else seen it in here?
I've seen it.
So they set up in this Malibu house, has all this glass, right? Glass windows just staring off to the beach and to the ocean. With just peace and quiet everywhere. They set their studio up in there. So they're literally just staring off into the sunset in the Pacific Ocean in this mansion in Malibu on the beach. And that's where he's making his music. It's where he's living and traveling from. It's where he got a dog from. I mean, it was just like it was a perfect setup. I was like, this is it right there. So that and the island, those two things. Avicii disappeared to an island, some third world country, disappeared in that island. And the last shot is him like playing a guitar with this drone that kind of disappears. And there's nobody else on the island, it seems like, except for him. I'm like, that would be the place where you can tell the local government, hey, will you just say I'm dead? This would be a good way to disappear. I don't know. If he did pass away, very sad. But I think there's a chance that old Avicii's still
dead. Imagine if he's still alive.
I don't think he is. I don't think he is.
So he comes back in like 20 years, does one last song. How much do you pay? How much do you think people pay for that concert?
It would be the tour. It'd be like the Back from the Dead tour.
Yeah.
That'd be hysterical.
That tour would
cool.
make
Make a gajillion.
Yeah.
Because all he has to say is he didn't know, turned his phone off. He didn't know that they had reported him dead. He was just living off by himself.
Yeah.
What about taxes and shit like that?
Well, he's in his third world country. He's living in his third world country. He's living in, what was the country?
Madagascar.
Yeah, he's in some island out in the middle of fucking nowhere, just living.
There's cell phones everywhere.
Dead.
Yeah, but he can just say. He can just say that his is turned off. Like, I think the only way you get around faking your death, right, would be to say you didn't know that people pronounce you dead.
Yeah. You just say unplugged, man. I unplugged. I'm back.
So that could be like 5 years from now. It doesn't even have to be 20 years from now.
Wow.
It's wild.
Got a whole
That's
album.
wild.
Cause what's I think the country of Oanu. I looked it up. Some tiny little country. Look it up. Avicii's death. Some tiny country announced his death. Tiny. And I was like, wow, that seems like it. I mean, if the Mexican president's getting paid off, that's a pretty big country. I would assume that if
Muscat, Oman.
Oman?
Yeah.
I would assume that there was in Muscat, Oman is where they announced him dead. I would assume that there's some government officials that you could shake some hands of. They could pronounce you dead, right?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
I would assume that is
Wouldn't
some
cost you anything down there. Yeah.
He had 500 some shows, 500 festivals in 2 years. The amount of money that fucking Avicii made for himself and for everybody associated with him is next level.
And you say it all the time. All the time. The fucking money doesn't bring happiness. And that's all I could think about during that whole entire documentary.
Sad, wasn't it?
Very sad
watching that whole thing.
But they did end it making you think this guy might be alive still. And I think they did that on purpose.
Him out in that fucking
Yes,
island.
absolutely. I think everyone had to have the same thought.
I think he's still alive.
Yeah, Mike Posner just wrote a whole album about him dying. I don't know if he'd do that to Mike.
I don't think him and Mike were that tight.
You think Mike was hanging on? You think Mike was just playing up his relationship?
I think Ibiza was kind of like Avicii's southern. So if I learn anything from that Avicii is that Ibiza is the Southern California of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you go, it's like the Southern, because Europe is basically like America, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just countries instead of states. I'm not saying they're anything like our states, but it is, if you look at Europe like that, as opposed to looking at each individual country, I think Ibiza is where all the Europeans escape to.
Oh, it's definitely the party island.
Yeah, it's like Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
Avicii ran Ibiza there for a while. I think that was his. I think that was his place, and I would assume if you go to Ibiza and you're in the music business, you go kiss the ring of Avicii, I assume. I don't know if Posner and him are best friends. Posner was not in the documentary.
No.
So I don't know if he was in the tight circle, but I would assume if you go to Ibiza and you see Avicii and you're a musician, you're boys, you're friends, but I don't think he's in the tight. I don't think he's in the tight circle. Like, I keep saying this. If he's dead. If he's that, very sad. But seems as if I am going to try to disappear, I'm going to Madagascar, and then I'm telling somebody in Oman that I'm dead.
Yeah.
The way they say he died, too, wild. Shard of glass. Stabbed himself with a shard of glass from a bottle. That's what, I looked into it. I thought it was an overdose.
That was an OD, so did I.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was not an overdose. It was a fucking shard of glass from a bottle.
That's a wild decision.
And then his parents came out, and their quote wasn't that of a distressed family.
What'd they say?
They weren't mourning.
No, they were like, he lived a life that we should celebrate. It wasn't like it wasn't like a super
That's suspect.
Like he
you
got
know what I mean?
tired of everybody else.
Well, if
and,
he
like,
was
the pressure.
sad, maybe that is something his parents would say.
I agree. That's why there's two ways to look at it. There's two ways to look at every single thing. Look at all the facts from it and watch that thing as if he is still alive and has faked his death. And then also watch it from as he
Well, you
actually
know what side I'm going to.
You think he's alive.
Yeah,
what
for
if
sure. Yeah.
what
For
if
sure.
Avicii died, but
Tim
Tim Bergling
Is still alive.
is alive?
Yeah,
in this
because
island?
they call him Tim. A lot of people were calling him Tim. And in the documentary, they actually say, like, Tim's dead. Avicii's everything now. There's no more Tim, really. It's just Avicii. So maybe they go to Oman. After his retirement, Avicii's dead. Tim Bergman's still
We're
alive.
onto something.
I would not be surprised. He hated that Arash guy towards the end there.
Oh, yeah.
Osh,
Yeah.
his manager,
Yeah.
he hated him. They made a lot of fucking money together, though. That Osh was Billy McFarland there early for him. But it was...
Booking him more shows.
We need an Arash, by the way, so I can hate him in 5 years. But we'll make $100 million in the next couple of years. I think Avicii's still alive. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of watching.
I want just one of those people to actually
Come
still
back.
be alive. You know what I mean? Because there's so many stories of so many people. But also, it would be such a great story because, yeah, I know he had more money than everybody, and you know, times 100 because of where he's at, because the exchange rate, so he could control his own little universe. But the discipline it takes to never leave that little island for that amount of time.
But I think he could travel. I think Avicii, because even in that documentary, he looked like three different dudes.
Absolutely.
When he was hungover, he looked like a guy. Whenever he was dressed up, he looked like a different guy. And then whenever he was younger, he looked like four different guys.
Yep.
They all,
Yeah.
all had a similar shape of the face, I guess. But
I don't doubt he could do that, but when you start doing that, you involve so many more people. Now you're involving another 10 people to get you to where you need to go.
I don't know. If you
in
throw
the
a fake
chain.
mustache on him, he looks
yeah.
like a way different person.
Dye your hair. You
Yeah, I
gain
know
some weight.
that, but I mean, you're involving more people in the story.
I think his friends, he has that tight group that was with him everywhere.
Yeah.
They obviously know. It's like, where are those guys living at now?
Yeah.
If
that's
they're
it.
all living back in America, then maybe he is dead. But if they're still living abroad, let's just assume that they are living with a guy who did 500 and some shows in 2 years. Festivals, not just shows. The amount of money that motherfucker has to have.
Oh, man.
Has to have.
He didn't stop.
It's
He
like
did
when
not
Vince
stop.
disappeared to the island.
Who?
Vinny Chase.
Exactly. Avicii said that he didn't even know it was possible to go Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. Stopped on Wednesday for some reason. Wednesday was like, he said, I didn't even know it was possible to do that until we just started doing it. And then we didn't stop. And then it was like 3 years straight of that, of partying and DJing 6 nights out of the week, traveling. Boom, 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 boom.
I watched something with Steve Aoki. He said the same thing. He basically trained his body to sleep like 3 hours a night.
We've
because
heard of
that.
DJs doing a show here in Indianapolis at 9 p.m. Eastern, and then after the show, flying to Vegas to do their normal spot at a
Waka.
Vegas casino. Not Waka, DJs.
Waka did that though. Waka left Indy, and I think he went to Boston, or maybe he went west. I guess you would have to go west to save the time. He did a show here in Indy, and then flew somewhere to do another show that same night. Same show, 2 of them, same night. It was just like, what a fucking hustle! These guys are just making cake. Making cake.
Good for them.
That's what we should start doing.
Avicii would make $500,000 per gig.
He did 500 of them. Go ahead and Google that real quick. What is that? 250 million?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Use a calculator.
I think that's right.
Yeah, it's pretty spot on.
In what, 2 years?
And that's just on shows.
Yeah.
He's got all these bangers out too.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
On live appearances.
Hey, brother, I got more money than all your mother.
His net worth was 85 mil. So
Yeah.
I can imagine you could live on
Yeah.
an island for a while.
Yeah.
in a third world country.
And that was after he gave away a bunch to charity. Was 85 mil.
Yeah, that's like $1 billion where he went to hide out. Yeah. You know, it really is.
And it looks like that too with the drone shot. He has an entire island to himself. It's the dream, boys. Hopefully one day I'll be able to say I'm fake dead. Yeah. And we'll all just live in some island.
It'd be nice.
It would be nice.
That'd be real
That'd be
nice.
awesome.
We get bored though.
You would.
You would for sure. Hey, you just put 18 holes on that island. I'm good. That's all I need.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I guess if you get a little office golf setup.
Who would you tell? Like, who would you be like your close?
So the issue here, let's think about this.
No one.
If Avicii isn't wifed up, or if he is, I don't know if he's wifed up.
I guess he was. And his girlfriend always posts about missing him and stuff. So that was the only thing that got me.
He couldn't fornicate with random ladies.
No.
If he's a dead person. Couldn't do that.
Why not?
Because then they know.
Yeah, but they don't know it's him. It could just be some random guy.
True.
If he's assumed a complete,
It's just some,
other
it's
identity.
just some
guess
random
it would
rich
just-
guy living in fucking Middle East.
It would have to just be prostitutes, I guess.
Yeah,
Couldn't
probably
be.
like those women, like the Arab sheiks flying.
Well, yeah,
and
like
stuff
in
from all
Oman,
over,
like
you know what
how
I mean?
many Omanians do you think know Avicii?
I don't think he lives in Oman. I think he went to Oman because he could get the Oman.
Well,
people to
wherever
say-
he's at.
I
How
think he's
many-
living on his island in Madagascar.
Yeah.
If you see this documentary, you see this island. It's like I would never.
It's a beautiful place. I've seen the animated film.
I have.
That's good. I'm surprised you haven't. You're a big animated film
I am
guy.
an animated guy.
Madagascar's
How
a good
come there's
one.
not a
is good.
documentary finding Avicii right now? I mean,
I bet you there is.
There really should be at this point. 3 college kids go there and say, hey, we're taking a one-way trip. Let's go. Let's
Let's
bring
do
our
it.
cell
Let's
phones
do it
and go."
ourselves.
It'd be the number one
Let's go.
podcast for 3 months.
Yeah,
Todd.
Let's go doing.
PI. That
Yeah.
would be your thing.
Let's kick it in. You got the brain too.
Hey, see you guys.
We got all these guys. Use
I know.
our skills. Let's go. We'll find him.
It was sad watching Avicii battle through that, though.
Very.
It was very sad watching him. Just the ups and downs. All I ever wanted when I was a kid was money. That's all I ever wanted. I didn't care how I was going to get it. Professional wrestling, cool, I'll go do that. Stand-up comedy, cool, I'll do that. Professional soccer player, cool, I'll do that. Football, I'll do that. However I get a shit ton of money, that is what I'm going to go do. It's the only thing I wanted. Then you get a bunch of money and you're like, man, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was all going to be great. I thought everything was going to be perfect. Gives you a lot of freedom, but it doesn't necessarily equate to happiness. And there's only so many people that can say that without people believing it. But until you experience it yourself, it's just a whole different animal. And Avicii very much was experiencing that.
Absolutely.
You have everything in the palm of your hand, everything you could possibly want. But happiness doesn't come from that. Happiness comes from inside. It's a real thing. Happiness is a real thing inside. And you can take this from me. I haven't been wealthy. I've been rich. I haven't got to the wealthy stage yet. I plan on doing it because I want my kids to be comfortable. But happiness doesn't come from that. And I've bought some shit that should make me a lot of happiness. And it's like deep inside, it's not the answer. It's sad. Sad to think about it. And that documentary is basically, like Foxy said, a visual representation of that, just from beginning to end.
I would assume too he probably has one of those weird obsessive personalities, and I have a little bit of that too. So I could see how, like, if you get into that world in order to maintain the schedule like he did, he has to be just over the top obsessive compulsive. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in this now. I can't stop doing it. I want more.
Yes.
If I can make that much in
Well,
a
I don't
week,
think
I
it
can
was
make
him.
twice that the next week.
I don't think it was just him. I think it was he had a guy named Arash who was
Yes.
his manager.
That's who it was.
Arash was the guy who is he's the mind behind it. He was the one setting up all the shows. He wasn't even going on the trips anymore. So he was just setting up the shows from a third location. So he didn't have to do the travel, show, party, travel anymore. He was just setting it up as like a business basically. Like, okay, we'll do this. Yeah, you can get to this. Technically, you can get. That's kind of what was happening with Avicii. They had somebody who was like, technically, you can get from this show in California to this show in Ibiza in a day and a half. So we can set you up for a festival here. Then we can get you back to here in Miami. Then we can get you to here. Just technically, it could all work. They don't take into account, though, that it isn't a video game. Like Avicii isn't a fucking video game.
Yeah.
He's an actual human whose body is going to collapse and crash, which is going to bring down his mental state of mind because he's no longer happy because it's a job instead of a hobby. It's just that those are the types of things that, and it's greed. Greed gets a hold of everybody.
That's what it was. At the very end, Avicii's like, I don't see a reason why I should do another show. And the manager's like, I understand that, but there's this gig, and this is how much money you guys are going to lose if you don't do the show. And then it was like, fuck. Like, that's when I felt really, really bad.
What was the money?
I don't remember the number.
I don't think they gave the number.
I don't think they did either. But
I don't think they gave the number strictly because they knew how many people were going to be watching.
Yes.
But I was interested to hear that number, by the way. I was like, as soon as we got to that part, I like lifted my ear. I was like, what's his number here? How much are we losing with these next two shows? I think the world would like to know how much he's losing. But, I mean, he made a shit ton. I think he's still alive.